Tragedy on the road tonight as two tour buses collide.
The bus was smashed up. It was pretty bad.
A Vegas vacation ends in injury for dozens of people, and thousands more were left stranded on the highway for hours.
This is News 3 Nightside with Gerard Romano and Anquinette Moon.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for watching. The commute from Las Vegas to California turned tragic this afternoon as a chain reaction crash caused dozens of injuries and forced I-15 to shut down.
The interstate is just now getting back to normal. The accident involving two tour buses left more than 40 people injured, some critically.
It happened on the southbound lanes of I-15 just before 4 this afternoon. The scene of the crash is just a few miles east of Baker, or about 80 miles west of the valley. But traffic was actually backed up all the way to Prim. The highway was closed for several hours.
It all started after 5 cars got into a chain reaction crash. The tour buses were behind those cars. One bus slowed down to avoid the accident, but the other bus slammed into the first bus. The accident was so severe, the entire freeway had to be shut down.
The video that you're looking at here was taken from Sky 3 shortly after the accident. More than 100 people were on those buses, and most of them were injured.
Emergency crews from California and Nevada rushed to the scene and sped victims to the nearest hospitals. Some were flown in on Flight for Life and others were driven in by ambulances.
Tonight, those victims are recovering at UMC, Lake Mead Hospital, and also Desert Springs Hospital. We begin our first response team coverage tonight with Steve Krupe, who's live at UMC. And Steve, that's where the most critical victims have been taken.
That is correct, Gerard. Rescue workers tell us they've never had to deal with anything of this magnitude in terms of the total number of people involved. There were 104 passengers on board those two buses, dozens of them injured, many of them brought here to hospitals in the Las Vegas area, including UMC, where 6 of those passengers are in critical condition. One by one, the most critically injured passengers began to arrive. 3 Mercy Air helicopters made repeated flights out to the crash scene. The more seriously hurt victims were on board the second of the 2 buses. Here you can see that bus with its front end smashed in. It rear-ended this bus, which had apparently slowed down or stopped to avoid several cars involved in an earlier crash.
It was real bad.
Chris Nolan had numerous family members on board the second bus, and he was nearby in Barstow when he heard about the crash and came rushing to the scene.
And there were still people trapped on side of the bus because the chairs were broken up and thrown everywhere. So we're just helping them get off the bus as much as we can.
There were so many victims that needed treatment, it became a huge logistical challenge to get enough ambulances in and out of the area. And when medical supplies ran short, cardboard boxes and tape did the job.
All their supplies were already used up, and we were just going through like whatever they had left, which was cardboard boxes for the broken legs and stuff like that.
At times, the Mercy Air choppers were arriving so quickly here at UMC, they had to hover above the hospital and wait for the landing pad to clear. Back at the scene, investigators have been interviewing witnesses, taking photos, and measuring skid marks in an effort to figure out exactly what happened. With heavy weekend traffic on that section of I-15, rescue workers say this situation could have been worse. They say it is very fortunate that no one died. Reporting live, I'm Steve Krupe. Now back to you.
Steve, thank you. Here is the latest information on what happened to the victims at the actual crash site. Clark County fire officials who were at the scene say out of the 104 people on both buses, 48 were taken to Valley hospitals. 24 of them were brought into Nevada by ambulance, and as Steve Krupe told us, 6 were airlifted to UMC. The 4 others taken to Valley View Hospital are in moderate condition at this hour, as are the 2 taken to Needles, Nevada. More than 100 emergency crew members responded to the scene of today's accident. 25 of them were from Clark County. And as victims from this accident pour into the Valley hospitals, it's putting a serious strain on our blood supplies. Right now, both types of O blood are depleted, and there is a shortage of all other types. Tonight, United Blood Services is asking for donors. You can call the number on your screen. It is 233-9620. You can leave your name and number. They'll call you back the first thing in the morning, or you can call tomorrow to set up an appointment.
And as we mentioned, the accident caused traffic to be backed up for several miles. Here's a look now at the line of cars that was heading towards Los Angeles, an incredible sight. The accident shut down the entire interstate southbound for about 4.5 hours. All drivers could do was pretty much sit and wait it out. After a while, troopers did block off the interstate at the state line to try to help some of those drivers find a detour. Right now, traffic is getting back to normal near Baker, and that's where we find News 3's Ann Lim. And I-15 is pretty much the main highway between Vegas and L.A. Typically, southbound traffic is busy on a Sunday afternoon.
That's right, Gerard, and most of them are headed back to California. Emergency personnel called this the worst and the most traumatic accident they've seen in this area. Right now, I'm standing on an access road right next to I-15 South, which has been closed for construction. And as you can see, the traffic is moving along pretty smoothly, but a completely different scene just a few hours ago at about 3:30 today when two tour buses collided. The buses were traveling on I-15 South when one of them rear-ended the other one. The buses were headed back to the LA area.